And welcome to week one of the high school football postseason. I'm Kelly Hines here with Barry Lewis. Barry, we have a lot of enticing matchups this week. Let's hear about 5A first.
Yes, a lot of times when the playoffs start, the first week of the playoffs don't have a lot of compelling matchups, but that's not the case this year. There's a lot of interesting matchups, and let's start off in 5A where you've got a rematch of last year's state championship game as East Central hosts Booker T. Washington. East Central was the preseason favorite, and it looks like they are peaking at the right time. Last year they lost to Booker T in the state championship game. This year I think you'd have to consider them as the favorite to beat the Hornets this time, although Booker T, great tradition. They've got a lot of championship players on that team. They're not going to go down easily. I think it's going to be a great game, but I have to give East Central the edge. And another very interesting matchup in 5A is at McAllister, where Central 8-2 visits the undefeated Buffaloes, and that's a really tough assignment for a district champion. A lot of times you don't expect the district champion to get such a tough first-round game and to host a team that's 8-2, but Central definitely could be a problem for McAllister. Although I'll have to give McAllister, due to the home field edge, I'd have to make them the favorite. Tony Kiefer having a great season. I think they might have a little too much offense for Central, but Central's defense, what a great job it did last week in winning by shutout at a district champion prior. So it wouldn't surprise me if Central pulled off the upset, but I'll have to give McAllister the edge. And Kelly, how does 6A look to you? You've got a great matchup on Friday night that you're going to.
That's right, Stillwater at Jenks, and the Pioneers have a tough draw playing Union and Jenks in back-to-back weeks. They got shut out at home last week in the district title showdown, and this week doesn't get a whole lot easier. Jenks defense played really well last week, and I think the Pioneers will maybe fare a little bit better this week with Jeremy Littell at quarterback, but that's going to be an interesting game for them.
Do you think, how important do you think it is for Jenks to apply a lot of pressure on Jeremy Littell and look at Jenks as a great defensive line led by Orion Jones? Is that going to be a key to the game?
Yeah, I think it definitely will. The Redskins last week, they had a lot of pressure on him, and that forced him to, throw a lot sooner than he was used to. And, he has some great receivers there to throw to, but if he doesn't have time to, see what's available, and if he's rushed, then that's a huge problem for Stillwater. Then another really interesting game, Norman at Iwasa. That's a game that last year went to 5 overtimes. Very memorable one there. And this year will be pretty interesting. Depends whether Norman has Donovan Roberts back. He had an ankle injury last week. Last year against the Rams, he had 4 touchdowns. So I would think that he would be a big threat to them again this year.
Yes, if Donovan Roberts can't play or if he isn't effective for Norman, that's going to be tough for them to beat Iwasa. It's going to be tough for them to beat Iwasa anyway, but if Donovan Roberts is in the lineup, I'd say I'd pick Iwasa as a slight favorite. Without Donovan Roberts, I'd say Iwasa would be a very strong favorite. And it's a very interesting matchup because a lot of the key players from last year, no pun intended with Case and Key, Iwasa's quarterback, a lot of the key players are back for this rematch. Iwasa is such a high-powered offense with Case and Key and Keon Hatcher. It should be a very intriguing game. And another interesting 6A game could be Bixby at Broken Arrow. TJ Eckert and Bixby with a record of 3-7. They've won their last 2 games, though. They put up a lot of points, so I would have to consider Broken Arrow the definite favorite. I think they've got a great chance to reach the championship game, but they've got to be ready to play against Bixby.
What are some other games that look pretty interesting to you this week?
In 4A, talking about a district champion, which gets a little bit tougher first-round matchup than expected. I see that with number 1 ranked Catoosa, which is hosting Broken Bow, which was ranked 4th in the preseason. They've been bothered by some injuries, but it's a tradition-rich school, and they could give Catoosa some problems, although with Levi Browning expected to be back in the lineup for Catoosa, combined with Cole Shulin, I think that ground attack will be too much for Broken Bow, so I'll pick Catoosa to win that game. And in 3A, one of the most interesting matchups is Tahlequah Sequoia at Berryhill.
Yeah, I think that was really interesting. Those 2 teams, their only losses were to top 10 teams, and that's a really interesting one for a first-round matchup. I think that those teams are surprisingly even matched, And I think that one could be a close one. I think Tahlequah Sequoia could pull out the upset, but turnovers have been key for them
That's
this
the
season.
key, if Sequoia can avoid the turnovers. And I will make the winner of that game, I think the winner of that game could be a big surprise in this year's playoffs. They could go a long way.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but the key, of course, is to survive that tough first-round matchup. Kelly, do you have, when we look at the other classes, any sleeper picks or teams that aren't ranked like number 1 or number 2 that you think are going to make a deep run in the playoffs?
Well, in 3A, I kind of like Beggs. They've won 9 straight, having a pretty good season with Ramsey Hamilton there at quarterback. And I think that that's going to be a team that, it's going to do some damage. What do you think?
I think Beggs definitely. It's a team that usually has performed better in the playoffs than it has in the regular season. And this year they've had its best regular season in a while, and they look really strong. It seems like they are getting better and better every week. So 3A is so deep, so loaded, and it just occurred to me that the two teams that everyone think are the best in 3A, and Heritage Hall and Cassia Hall, they won't even meet in the championship game. They would meet in the semifinals if they win their first 3 playoff games. So, but 3A, there's so many contenders. Metro Christian's undefeated. Anadarko looks like a machine. And then we talked about Verdigris. They've only lost 1 game, and they've got a very interesting first-round matchup this week against Sperry, a team. I think this is the 4th time they played them in 2 seasons. There have been some wild games between those teams, so Verdigris has to be ready to play against Sperry. You could go as far as teams that could reach the title game in 3A. I think it's the deepest of all the classes. I think you can go 10 to 12 teams deep. Tahlequah Sequoia don't even have in the top 10 rankings, but if they can beat Berry Hill, I think they would have a chance to even get to the championship game.
I agree. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Be sure to watch TulsaWorld.com on Friday night for all the latest scores and updates.